With the most recent patch came some changes to Musket, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you some of the adjustments I made to my build specifically to work around some of these changes that they put in place. I'm also going to share a couple of different options for you so you can kind of decide what fits your playstyle and how you like to use your Musket build. As always, before we fully get into today's video, I do just want to say if this video helps you out, or if you just like it, please drop it a like. It really helps me out a lot. And if you want to see more content like this, including more build videos, loot videos, stuff like that, definitely subscribe to the channel so you know when those videos go up. I also stream throughout the week over on Twitch as well as YouTube, so definitely stop by, stream, say hello, lurk, anything like that. We would love to have you. But let's get into today's video. To get us started, we are quickly going to go over the gear and some of the changes I've made since my previous Musket video, because now that I'm not running Life Taker with this, I did change some things around. Plus, we're going to go over why I chose the ring that I did, because with the Musket changes, my ring is actually very, very useful. So we'll get into that. But to get us started with the armor here, you're going to notice that I am running the full nature harnessing with the nature damage rune glass, outside of the fact that I'm still running Nature's Wrath. So I don't put any rune glass in my Nature's Wrath because I do alternate this to various different builds. If this is going to be the only build that you're running it with, you can definitely rune glass it. You don't have to put health on it. You could put something else, but this is just what I've been running since I swap it around. Health is just kind of all around good to swap around to different builds for me. We do still have the crippling powder burn on our gloves, and then what I did different with this, since we're running pestilence, is I actually have crippling blast shot, so we can apply a 21% slow when we hit people with our blast shot. So it's very, very nice because we have the blast shot, and then we also have the crippling powder burn, and then we also have a net shot. So we have 3 different applications of slow, whether that's to peel for ourselves or to essentially try to slow someone down to make shooting a little bit easier and just an easier target to hit. So the boots have been really, really nice. I do recommend having that perk, but it's not a completely necessary one to have. So if you don't have it, don't worry about it. But if you're able to, it is really nice to have. So as you can see, like I said, we're running Pestilence, and with the Pestilence, I like to have Plague Splitting Grenade, just increases the amount of disease that we have. And then on top of that, with the Blighted Enchantment, we're able to apply the poison as well as the disease with both of our weapons. So even with our musket, we're able to apply that. So it's really, really nice because then we can apply even more disease and more poison and all that stuff and just stack it with our musket as well as the blunderbuss itself. So I do really, really like this with this build, especially since we're running full nature damage. I'm still running the same amulet with the thrust protection, which I think is really good to have right now. We have been running into more muskets in general, so having that thrust protection plus any spears, like I say most of the time, any spears, rapiers, anything like that, it's just nice to have a little extra protection against that. I am running Endless Thirst, which you don't have to run, but it is kind of nice having a little bit stronger on the healing consumables. I've thought about swapping this off and going with a Healthy Toast, which you could definitely do, and I might even change in the future, but currently I still have Endless Thirst. The only downside really is that you don't get to utilize the Empowering Toast because of the Nature's Wrath, but you still get the Fortifying Toast and then the Thirst itself, which is just increasing how strong those consumables are. And then for our ring, I am running the Red Hot Slag, which normally comes with Hardy and Bloodletting, and then I crafted it to then have nature damage. So with the Bloodletting, because we're still running the same Syncretic Musket, which has the Keenly Jagged Enchanted Arboreal Attunement, it extends the duration of our Keenly Jagged, plus once we get into the mastery here in a little bit, you'll then see also why having this bloodletting is so nice to have with the changes that they made to musket. So that is the gear. Those are kind of the updates that I've done with it. I've been really, really happy with the ring, pestilence, and those boots with the crippling blast shot because it just gives us a little extra peel, or again, an easier target to hit. So those are the changes though from that previous video if you did watch that. But next, let's get into the attributes and then the mastery. All right, taking a look over at the attributes here, we are still running 100 con, which I really do like, just gives us a little bit more HP. And then I am actually running 106 int, and then I'm popping a 44 int food because it's just been a little bit cheaper for me. I had a bunch of them on hand, but really what you're looking for is 150 int everything else in the dex, and then I run 100 con. If you want to run less con, you definitely can. I just find that the 100 works really, really well for me. But again, pretty straightforward layout for how I normally am going to be running my musket build. The pestilence, obviously, you're not going to do as much damage with that, but the whole build is revolved around the musket being your damage dealer, and then the pestilence is your disease application, your slows, peels, stuff like that. It's just a more utility weapon and less of actual damage. It still can do a little bit, but it really is more of a utility weapon in this particular build. So that is what we have for the attributes though, real quick. And then next, let's go hop into the mastery and take a look at the actual weapon builds themselves. All right, so briefly, we are going to take a look at the blunderbuss. This is my go-to build when it comes to pestilence specifically. So you can see we have full net shot, we have splitting grenade, and then the blast shot, which for blast shot, you can go with the movement speed if you'd like. I don't find that it's as useful, but you can definitely go for it if you find that it actually is more useful for you. But otherwise, I like to work down to the double down perk. The double down perk allows you to actually get those cooldowns back really, really quickly. And so whether you're using a net shot or a blast shot, then you get to get that back really, really fast. And then essentially you have a little bit more peel, or again, for a chase type of a weapon, then you can shoot a net shot. If they start running, you have that net shot ready to go fairly quickly, and then you can hit them again. So having the double down is really, really important. And also keep in mind that with the blunderbuss, they actually did increase or decrease, I guess, the duration of the reload time. So when you pop off your shots, that reload time is significantly faster. So I do highly recommend trying it out and seeing it for yourself, because it's pretty awesome the way that they actually have that now. They did lower the damage output of your basic attacks like that, but the overall like speed of the reload is super, super nice. So check it out for yourself and see what you think about it. Next, let's take a look at the musket build. So this is the musket build that I am specifically running, and this is my bleed build. So the reason why I call it my bleed build is because the Deadeye perk. Now, what they did different with this patch is with the Deadeye perk, it used to be for the bleed to be inflicted, you needed to get a headshot. They removed the need for that headshot, and all you have to do is actually hit multiple targets with a single musket attack. So it's way, way easier to actually trigger that bleed, and then your next shot within 3 seconds applies the bleed. So what I'm essentially doing is when I'm shooting my musket, I'm trying to pay attention to, all right, did I hit one target or two? If I hit one, or I should say 2 or more targets, then I know that my next shot within those 3 seconds is going to apply a 15% bleed for 5 seconds. Plus we have the bloodletting ring. So that's where that bloodletting ring really comes in handy for this, on top of having that keenly jagged. So this is a really, really nice ring to have, that red hot slag with the nature damage or whatever damage type you want to run, but running that with this particular build is really nice. And I am going to get into a second build in just a little bit, but first we're going to go through this one, and then I'll show you a second build that you guys can then actually also decide if it fits your playstyle better, but this one fits my playstyle way, way better. So what we have is we have powder burn all the way down to here, so then we can get the headshot and extend that duration. For the power shot, I actually don't stack this any further because for one, we actually have a wasted perk right here because you cannot get this in power with the Nature's Wrath. And then from there, you don't really get a whole lot. You get a 10% additional damage against targets full health, which isn't a huge deal, honestly. And then it's just a cooldown reduction for headshots. So really for the power shot, I wouldn't worry too much about running these 3 perks unless you're not running the Nature's Wrath. If you're not running Nature's Wrath, I would maybe recommend at least running this one and kind of see how it goes. We are also running stopping power instead of the sticky bomb. Before I was running sticky bomb, now I switched to stopping power. And there's 2 main reasons. One, they extended the knockback from 3 meters to 5 meters. So it's hilarious because you can hit people 5 meters back with it. So knocking people off of outposts and stuff is a little bit easier and just more fun. The other reason though is stopping power does not require a reload. So you could actually, let's say you start with a powder burn, dodge reload into a power shot, and then you can immediately shoot your stopping power after that without having to actually reload. So therefore, when we're talking about the Deadeye perk, when you're applying the 2 shots to, or 2 targets with 1 shot, You have 2 chances of getting that, and then that third shot with the stopping power could apply your bleed then, or you'll have you dodge reload, or however you want to stack that, because it doesn't specify that it does have to actually be the regular shots. It can be any type of attack. So that's what I've been doing, and I believe that it should be applying the bleed. That's what I've seen in the OPRs, but it seems as though you can apply it with any of the abilities. I've been finding that with the fact that you have the stopping power, you don't have to reload for that. So usually I'll use this after my dodge reload, because then you get to actually do a shot and then another shot right after. And you'll find that you're actually able to just pop more shots off a little bit quicker with it. So with the rest of the build, obviously I wanted to get down to the Deadeye. So in order to do that, we actually did end up going for the reloads kind of perks with it. So we can get our reloads a little bit quicker. It is really, really nice to have, especially because of the Deadeye perk being that we don't have to land the headshots. You can actually get pretty fast reloads, especially if you do land headshots. Like this one, if you land 2 headshots within 5 seconds of each other, then the next reload is halved. Plus you have this one, which if you 2 or more targets are hit with a single shot, the duration of the next reload is halved. So this one, the quick load, is pretty essential, I would say, for the Deadeye perk, just because they're both going to be proccing at the same time with that one shot. From there, I did go with the Shell Shock as well, just because, again, if we're getting the headshots, then we're going to apply a weaken, and we needed the extra point. The called shot increased damage by 10% after aiming down sight for 2 seconds, so you can actually kind of just, if you're in a safe spot, stay aimed in, get your shot off, dodge reload if you have to, get another shot off, stuff like that. And then I did go for the called shot resupply. So again, those headshots are applying the weaken. You're also getting a cooldown reduction with that. And then the optimal range. So we're just increasing that damage based on how close or far away that target is. So that's what we got for the sharpshooter side. And then on the trapper side, we have the salt in the wound, so 10% against targets below 30. So that is pretty noticeable when you're hitting someone. Weaken defense, so you increase the stam damage against the shields, and then you also have 10% armor pen. We have the increased haste, so then every time we dodge, we get a 10% haste, so just a little extra peel. And again, we do have all the slowing between the crippling powder burn, net shot, blast shot, because we have the crippling blast shot, and then we also have a 10% slow from the stopping power. So we have a ton of slowing power with our various weapons and abilities. It's very, very nice to have. Dodge reload, or the tactical reload, is essential. I think this is a fantastic perk to have. It's one that if you're running musket, no matter the build, I think this is one that you absolutely have to have, because it is so important to be able to get that reload back really, really quickly. It works fantastic. And then for the last perk, we have the kick them when they're down. So deal 10% extra damage to targets with an active crowd control status effect. So all the slows that we have, we are doing 10% extra damage against them, and it does not have to be an actual musket CC. It can be literally any form of slow, which we're applying with our blunderbuss as well. So if you blast shot someone onto the ground, you load up that power shot, you are going to do quite a bit of damage to them, because they're going to be knocked down, slowed, all that, and you're just stacking a bunch more damage on top of it. So really, really nice perk to have, and this build has been working great for me. So I'm going to respec this real quick, so I'll meet you right back, and then we're going to go over the second build that you can then go with, and you can kind of decide which playstyle is right for you. We'll kind of talk about why I have 2 separate builds that I like to run, or that you are able to run, depending on how you like to play musket. All right, so this is the other build that we're looking at, and this is going to be more of a burst damage build. Now this is going to be a little bit more consistent as far as just your overall damage output, as opposed to playing around more of the dots, which I like the dots build, and we'll get into why I kind of have the 2 builds and why they're kind of good in different situations, but we'll quickly go over the build itself. So we're running the exact same abilities. I really like these abilities, and it works really, really well, because on the lethal combo side, it used to be that you had to apply a trapper debuff in order for the 20% to proc, but now it is any form of musket debuff. So even your powder burn, which powder burn is a huge ability to use, and it has a lot of potential to last quite a long time on an enemy. So it's just more debuffs to apply. And honestly, with the powder burn being able to apply it, you don't have to rely on specifically landing like a powder or a stopping power or a trap or anything like that. You can get that 20% buff kind of all at all times. So it's really, really nice to have for those who like to just have more consistent damage output rather than relying on lining up shots in order, multiple targets in order to apply more dots. I just like the bleeds a little bit more. When you're shooting through an outpost and stuff in Outpost Rush, it's really, really nice. If you're shooting through mobs in PvE, it's really nice because then you're applying more. On top of that, you're also getting a 15% buff to headshots. So for PvE, like single target where you're fighting a boss, you can essentially hit their head a lot easier, being that it's PvE, at least most bosses or a lot of bosses. So you can get a 15% buff still and still help out. But if I were going full PvE with it, I'd probably run a little different build and probably go with Lethal Combo. But for PvP and specifically OPR, I really do like the Deadeye. But with the Lethal Combo, you can at least use your Powder Burn to then get that 20% increase in damage because you're also applying the crippling with it if you have crippling powder burn. And then we just had to essentially go with almost all of the perks on the trapper tree in order to get down to the lethal combo, but we did not go with the empowering weakness because that 5% increase or that 5% empower does not work with Nature's Wrath. If you are not running Nature's Wrath and you're relying on empowerments, then definitely run it. But because I am not, because I love Nature's Wrath and I think it's a fantastic artifact for DPS, especially light armor, this is just not going to work for you. So I don't run it. Anything with a timed empowerment like that won't work for me. I think I tested most all of the ones for Musket, and they just don't work. So I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you're not running Nature's Wrath, but overall, you just want to go with all the perks on this side outside of that one, if you're running Stopping Power, or even if you're just running Sticky Bomb, and then go with the Lethal Combo. So, like I said, we'll go over it one more time. Lethal Combo is a little bit more consistent, or quite a bit more consistent as far as your overall damage output goes, and it will correlate to a single target, not requiring multiple targets. But with the bleed side or the Deadeye side, then you inflict the bleeds. So you're just inflicting more damage to a group. You don't have really many AoE options with Musket outside of Sticky Bomb. But with this, you're able to at least shoot through groups, apply those bleeds. I've actually noticed that the bleeds have really helped me because especially with Pestilence, or even if you're running it with Life Taker, you're going to be applying extra dots on top of those shots. So with the Pestilence build that I'm running, I have the Poison Ticks from Pestilence that also apply to my Musket. I have the 2 ticks from the Rune Glass. I have the 1 tick of Attunement, which isn't really a dot, but it's just extra damage. And then we also have the Burns, the Keenly Jagged, plus if we stack this on top. So there's a lot of dots that you're able to apply to a group of enemies, but it still requires you to have some knowledge or some awareness of your shots when you're hitting multiple targets. So there's a little bit more thought that has to go through with the Deadeye build, but I actually really do like the idea of working around the dots a lot more. But again, the Lethal Combo is fantastic. I don't think you can really go wrong with either one. Again, Lethal Combo will be a little bit more consistent for you as far as that damage output goes. You still do need to land either your Stopping Power or your Powder Burn in order for those, future shots to actually do the 20% more. But I will say that when I do run that, the damage output is noticeable, especially if you're running it with Life Taker, where you are applying the Disintegrate on top of having, any void circles, tethers, anything like that. So it's kind of up to you, but this is the other build. The first build, that Deadeye build, that is the one that I have been loving the most. So that's why I went with the Bloodletting Ring on top of it. But definitely leave it up to you and your playstyle, because I like shooting through the enemies and trying to line up multiple enemies with my shots and then following up with knowing that I have that bleed. But totally up to you and how you want to run it. Let me know in the comments, though, if you have a preference in what you've been enjoying or other abilities that you've been enjoying, because obviously what I like might not be what you like. It's just, this is what I have fun with. But next, I do have some gameplay of the footage, so take a look at my newer, updated Musket build. Musket has gone through a lot of changes from hit scan to projectile, and now even with these most recent changes, I am still loving it. I know that musket is kind of a love-hate type of a weapon. You either love it, you hate it. You might love and hate it. I don't really know how you feel about it, but I know that I have really loved it throughout the years of playing New World. And honestly, I think these changes were really good for it. It might just need a little bit of tweaking and balancing. So let me know down in the comments what you think about these new musket changes and what you might think might need to also be changed or tweaked within the musket itself. But that is going to do it for today's video. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.